This is RF from the Country Lunch Show on WOOL 91.5 FM from Bellows Falls, Vermont. Let's get back with our interview with Paleo Mountain Man and Budcat 7.
Well, I've been an artist since I was 6 years old. When I was 5 years old. When I was 5 years old, I was sent outside by the teacher to sit on the lawn with the other kids to draw something. And I did. I sat down in front of a bush and I drew the branches of the bush. And what I learned from that was focus. It wasn't so much how to be an artist, but was how to see. And throughout my life, I've done oil paintings and I've done drawings and I've drawn portraits. I've done lots of portraits and pictures, and this is perfect for me. How I found myself in a place filled with images, stones full of images, I don't know. I feel like I was drawn there because the stones have a story to tell. I'd love to say I pull the images out of myself and create them myself because they're so amazing and fantastic. I just pull them out of the stones that I find that were left there by these white stone people. And they were mostly carved in white stone. They were left around a sacred site, around a serpent wall, and the images in them tell a story. And it's the story of the white stone people. And it's an intuitive language, and when you look at the images, intuitively you learn things in that place in your mind that these people were different than us. Their brains were different. They thought differently. They imagined things differently than us. But we're very similar. We're very similar in the way we can view the images, and they were us, but they weren't us. That's the best way I can put it. They were us, but they weren't us. They're touching us, and they're telling us you can be better than you are. You can be. You just have to imagine it. If you can imagine being better than you are, you can be. And there's power in that. And it's not mystical, it's not spiritual, it's not supernatural, it's everything. It's power of nature. And there's a frequency and a vibration in nature, and all you have to do is imagine yourself being a better person with nature. And
they were more intimately connected to nature.
That's what they're trying to say, I think.
And what they understood about nature was a lot greater than our understanding of it today. And there's so many other people just affirm that in their research and their studies. But these people were intimately connected with nature. They had an advanced knowledge, and just to the people listening right now who go to your channel, and I've defended you a lot of times too. A lot of people look at these artifacts and they look so crude and primitive that people often criticize and say, "Oh, that's nothing," or whatever it is. But I've shown on my channel mainstream research where they picked up different artifacts and items from air sites around the world that, any one of us would just walk right past. We wouldn't notice it. There's subtle features on these things that only certain people are able to discern, and Jimmy is one of those people. So the artifacts that he shows on his channel and the carvings, the heads in the wall recently, Jimmy's been showing some of these.
Very cool.
Heads in the wall, and they're absolutely identical to the descriptions of the people that we hear in all the accounts in my giant series on my channel. And you got to think about it too. Like, I'm not an artist, so if there was like a major catastrophe or something like that, and I was left with nothing, no pencil and paper and no acrylic paint or whatever it is, and I wanted to create something of art, I would only be able to do what my talent would allow me to do, which would probably be something pretty primitive. Yet I'm a very advanced person. You know, I'm a college graduate, et cetera, et cetera. But what could I really do artistically? Well, my art might be as the equivalent of like a sixth grader or something like that. So you have to think of it in those terms too. You have just average people. They wanted to create art. They did the best they could in creating these artifacts, whatever they were. They seemed very simple and primitive or whatever, but that's what those people were capable of because they weren't Rembrandts like me, for instance. So if I wanted created art, my art may seem very primitive and simple to other people, but to me, it's a masterpiece. You know, so this art is just everywhere up by Jimmy in the artifacts that he finds, and it's very subtle, and you have to have a certain eye for it, and Jimmy certainly does. And if you want to see some of this great stuff, you can go to his channel. Like I said, many places around the world, they find these small artifacts that look stones, that look like nothing. And then next thing you know, they're identifying it as some sort of art that comes from 8 and 9 and 10,000 years ago. So nobody should dismiss it offhand. What doesn't seem to be art really is art. And what's going on in these walls, people often don't register because they have no eye for it. But as you say, you have to sit there and contemplate these things for a while before you really, quote unquote, get it.
It's the way you go into it. If you consider perspective as a living thing, that it changes in your life. Your body changes. You don't look the same as you did 20, 30 years ago, 10 years ago, 5 years ago. Your perspective changes also, and let it change. And it can bring you into an understanding of the past, because we're talking about language of images. And speaking of the walls, which I love to speak about, because Dave and I have a passion for stone walls in New England and everywhere. I've been seeing things in the walls, and I sent Dave a few pictures of the heads, the large heads, and they carved them in the walls. And I walked by these walls many times, and I've studied them, and I've touched them, and I've photographed them, and I've done videos around them, and I'm still learning. My perspective is still changing all the time.
You're still seeing things, right, Jimmy? The more that you look at it, the more that
every day, every minute, every hour. And it's only a benefit because it's enriched my life so much that all I can say is it's a benefit to be able to use stones, just a stone wall, to change your perspective, which hopefully will change everything about your life. Because I think that's what these people were about. They were smarter, not smarter than us, but they were smarter in a different way. They had very good eyesight. Every little tiny thing was balanced to them. They had sacred geometry on their mind. They had astronomy on their mind. They knew the stars. They were everything that we think Einstein's best day would be. Very, very intelligent. And you can see it in the sophistication of their art. Their art was balanced. Their art was creative. It's amazing. It changes as it's. They did it in crystal, and crystal changes in light. And every different situation, as the day changes, the crystal will change, and the images change. And it's like watching a TV. The images, they change in front of your face. And photography is a great way of capturing these images. And if you spend the time looking at the stones, photographing them and pulling the images out, they jump right out at you. And once you see them, you'll never go back. And the same thing with the stone walls. If you start looking at the nuances in the walls, you'll start seeing things in the walls that you've never seen before. You'll walk by and say, wow, that's an eagle, or that's a big head, or that whole thing is a glyph. It's not just a pile of stones, and they're formed geometrically. They're perfectly shaped. And there's a little square stone there in the center of it, and it's
that 3 vertical flat stones,
right,
and 2 horizontal flat stones, and a negative space.
It's like music in the walls. It's like
Absolutely.
sounds. It's and they're built hollow built walls, They're acoustically built. I like saying that, acoustically built. They put them on solid ledge, and every stone, the weight is on the other stone, which is how they hold them together. They don't use mortar. They hold them together through their own weight. And they place them together perfectly, and they're still standing.
Hey, can I get in here a little bit here?
Sure.
Okay, you're talking about sound, right, and recording and things like that. Well, there is a person that I've watched on the internet who has taken trees, right, and he's cut the trees into like CD discs. I don't know how thick they are, half inch, an inch, and then he has a player. He built a player so that he can listen to the music in the tree.
That's cool.
And
That's
he
amazing.
spins it, and he comes out with all these sounds. It comes out really interesting. Now,
Very interesting.
right, do you have any
Very.
flat rocks on your property? Do you
Well,
think,
you know, that's a possibility, right?
right, you can
Yeah.
build a recorder, or take your cell phone or something and drag it around and listen to it, you know, or
Listen
build a
to the
recorder that
sound.
goes right around to the center like a CD disc.
I believe
You
you.
can listen to the Stone Age version of the Rolling Stones.
Right.
Well, one of the qualities of quartz crystal is it has an effect that if you put any pressure on it at all, any outside pressure, even the weight of itself sitting on the earth, it creates an electrical field around itself. And if you bury a stone, a crystal in the ground, and 1,000 years later you pull it out, it releases the light that frequency that it held there when it was put in the ground. I believe that's how it works. And when you bring them out into the light, they change color. They change. A lot of things change in these stones. They're not just flat stones. The light goes right through them. And there's a property about them that these people understood. And they created images in them to make the stones more to value to them. And they've created their stories in the stones. And they use these stones, these crystals, to hold information just like we do today. That's exactly what they did. And what information did they hold? Well, it was images, because that's how they thought and spoke. It was what they thought about and how they projected on their ideas through images.
Is there any way
And I
to
think
measure
also-
these? Is there any way to measure these frequencies that it holds?
Yes, there is, I believe.
All right.
Yeah, I believe it's
I
it's a
think-
physical science. It's been done. I mean, they use there's a crystal science. It's used in almost everything
Healing.
we do.
Healing. There's a lot of healing going on. And I think also, I mean, from my own personal experience, you have these white quartz stones placed strategically in the walls, you know, and to me, you know, my feeling among the walls, my spiritual take on what goes on within the wall barriers, I mean, I feel a sense of peace. I feel a sense of positive energy when I'm among the stone walls, and that may have a lot to do with the quartz crystal that's placed in the walls in strategic areas. I recommend to anybody who wants to do some of their own sort of personal healing, personal spiritual healing, go take a walk among the walls. Go sit in an area among the walls, and the walls will heal you because they have that healing, that quartz crystal healing energy in the walls. But my overall take on the walls is that they're very positive. There's a positive energy there. And I really don't buy into these people. Some of the people, I've seen some videos online where, you know, creepy New England, where they want to sort of make it like a creepy thing or whatever it is. Well, I don't detect that in the stone walls at all. I detect a very positive energy in the stone walls. Don't you, Jimmy?
Well, that's what I'm talking about. It'll change your life for the better, and all you have to do is go along for the ride. And perspective is a living thing. Let it change your mind. And once your mind is changed, your whole life will change. And
Tell us where your websites are, guys.
Paleo Mountain Man. I'm from Springfield, Vermont.
And you can find it on YouTube
On
and
YouTube.
Budcat.
And Stonewall Research. 3 separate words, Stonewall Research, Budcat 7 on YouTube. Just type it in there, you get right to my page.